The movie After Last Season is one of the most complicated movies that I've ever seen. Not because of any reason you might be thinking of, but solely based on the fact that this movie is so boring. The movie only actually has a runtime of 93 minutes, but honestly, if you watch this movie, you will feel like you've been there for days. Just look at this opening title scene for the movie. And just to give this movie the benefit of the doubt, I actually did edit out about 25 seconds of the splash screen of different companies that were unfortunate enough to sponsor this movie. The intro actually goes on for about a minute, and honestly, watching that, it honestly made me contemplate what I was doing with my life, and I actually felt like part of my soul was draining away after watching all of that. So let's just get into the actual heart of this movie then. What is the plot about? The story behind this movie is... it's just not even there. It is the most bizarre thing that I can't even begin to describe. Obviously this is a spoiler for the movies, but it's actually impossible to tell what the plot is from watching the movie. Now, the last time I remembered, in a movie, the point of watching it is to understand what the characters or the director is trying to portray. But even after watching this movie, I actually found out the best way to summarise and to even just tell you what the plot is was from actually watching the trailer and reading the IMDb page on it. So to summarise the plot, I'll put this on screen as well, just in case you don't like the way I read or whatever. But the movie is about Matthew Andrews and Sarah Austin. They're medical interns studying neurology at Prorolis, that's a word that I can't say by the way. I think it's Prorolis Corporation. When a serial killer begins murdering their fellow students, they use experimental chips to visualise the events of the crime. Okay, I've heard a lot of weirder plots in Hollywood and other movies, but yeah, that's pretty out there, isn't it really, when you think about it, and especially when it's coupled with scenes like this.
What makes a signal that tells a muscle to contract different from a signal that tells an entire hand to contract? That's a good question. When not entirely successful in some experiments, the brain signals are processed and converted into numerical values. The values can then be represented as pixels on a monitor.
So yeah, that scene was just pretty baffling. It was a totally random scene, pretty much. I just randomly went across the timeline and chose one. But could you tell what the plot was from that movie? Most movies have this thing called continuity. I know that it's a bit weird in this sort of example, but continuity means like there's a story that flows through the movie, you know, it's continuous through the movie. In this film, the story isn't in any scene. There's no continuity at all with the story because there's nothing there. If you take a film such as Avengers Endgame, for example, that's the most recent film I can sort of think of. Watch any random scene from there and you can tell who is in the scene, you can tell what's going on, you can tell maybe what they're going to do next, you can tell what's going to happen, or you can tell what they're going to build towards. In this movie, you can't do that at all. So yeah, while we're on the subject of the plot of the movie, I think it's about time we talk about the man, the myth, the legend, the masterpiece behind this movie. Now, his name is Mark Regum. You probably haven't heard of him, but he's done a lot, specifically in this movie. He's directed, produced, he's written, and he's even shot the movie himself. Now, you may be thinking to yourself, oh, this is just some weird like indie flick or indie movie that had a very small budget and had maybe this one producer guy behind it and a few writers at most. But no, it has a massive budget of $5 million. So let's just have that sink in for a second. This movie has a budget of $5 million, and it looks like this.
So are you all settled in your new apartment? Ed. Thanks. I don't know much before that. My mother didn't go into the details. She spent most of her early years in a small town.
Now the main thing I want to know is, how did they make this movie look so bad on such a massive budget? Now, when one person takes charge of a movie, you tend to have sort of two styles of people who they want to do absolutely everything their own way. So you either have person A, who has a perfect vision of what they want. They want like absolute specifically shot in a certain way. I know I butchered my English there, but they want a scene shot in a very particular way, and they want their movie to be a mirror image of a scene that they've got in their mind, which most of the time does work out pretty well if the director or the producer, whoever's doing this, actually can take criticism and can take stuff on board. If I'm being honest with you, I think this Mark Regin person, he seems to be person B, which I've sort of categorised as a control freak, someone who can't take any form of criticism at all towards their idea, and without any secondary writers, or maybe a director, maybe a different producer, or literally anyone besides the actor on screen or whatever, without any criticism at all, they'll just make total rubbish, pass it off as a film because they think it's good, rather than something that is objectively okay or average, and then they can build from there. They just want what they've got in their head rather than taking criticism. But if you haven't already got a certain vibe from this movie, I'd probably summarise Mark Regin and this movie as a sort of pretentious wannabe indie flick that he thinks if you film stuff in a weird way, like weird equals good and weird equals money, but it just doesn't. I mean, in a lot of movies, if they're weird, you know, they get a lot of people talking about them, a lot of people might go and see them. But if you can't even hear what the actors are saying in this movie, it's like some scenes in this movie you can't understand what they're saying.
No. I've worked with 8 previous subjects. None of them given any negative feedback.
And there's no danger to the brain.
No. The electrical signals created are far too weak to cause any harm.
And if it's shot this badly as well, I don't get how that makes it better. If it's shot in like an old style where it's on, because this was shot on film by the way, 35mm film. If he used that to his advantage and colour corrected it, maybe he wanted to add some film grain to it to make it look old. If it was like an old style of movie, I totally get that. You know, that's a different style of movie, a different style of filming, sorry. And yeah, it might appeal to a lot of people, but when it's bad, he hasn't even colour corrected this by the way. It looks terrible. I don't get how being basically lazy thinks he's going to get money. It's just really bizarre. Now, as I previously mentioned, this movie has a budget of $5 million. I still don't understand why or how. But yeah, let's just take a look at the opening scene of this movie. I guess most people could argue that the opening scene of any movie is the most important because it draws people in to keep watching throughout the whole movie. So let's just watch this scene then.
I was reading your form and you've indicated that you have Parkinson's disease.
The disease is in its beginning stage. The signs of the disease are minimal.
You will need to remain still for the images to be sharp. Can you control your shaking?
Well, I think I can control my shaking for a short while.
While you're inside the MRI scanner, you'll be able to talk through the two-way channel.
Alright, I'm sorry for putting you through that by the way. I hope you came prepared for that terrible scene, but these are just some notes that I've made about it. So the main thing I wanted to mention was the audio. The audio is just way off, and in some scenes throughout this movie, and by the way, the audio does not get any better by the way. At some points in this movie you can't hear what people are saying. The colour of this scene looks horrible. They shot this movie on film, but they just did not colour correct it, and it looks like they shot on a really bizarre camera. I don't know what camera they shot on by the way. I'm sure if you dig deep enough you might be able to find it. There's no colour correction at all. The actors are terrible in this scene, and I'm not just talking about a subjective point of view. They are objectively pretty bad. You can tell that they are actors. Whereas the main point of being an actor is, you know, to make people forget that they're reading lines, you know, being paid or stuff like that. But I'm not really surprised, to be honest, because there's a pretty big revelation about this. Because Mark actually was in an interview about this movie, and he actually stated that the people who feature in this movie, they aren't even actors. They're predominantly carpenters and people who were hired to build the set of the movie, and that's something I'll talk about in a minute, by the way, the set of this movie. So the people who are on screen in this movie are not paid actors. I mean, they are being paid for this, but they've got no qualifications. I'm not having a go at them at all, by the way, but it's just terrible. This movie could have had some sort of potential, but it's just so... I can't even put it into words. I'm going to end up just keep rambling. But I can't really have a go at them too much. I'm more having a go at the fact that they were just dragged in to, you know, obviously act in this movie. I know that they were obviously paid and all stuff like that. But it's just the fact that I have a feeling that behind the scenes Mark was giving them so much weird and pretentious stuff to work with that they're probably just confused regardless. Regardless of if he got an amazing actor, he probably would have confused them that much that it would have just turned out the same. Now I know this isn't in the opening scene of the movie, but I just need to bring this up because I need to prepare you for this. There are some horrific animation scenes in this movie. Not graphic at all, although they are sort of meant to be, because well, I'm trying not to laugh here, but pretty much the animations in this movie, I only found this out, by the way, because of the description of the movie. They are the characters having a dream, and their dreams are being portrayed to the audience or the viewer through these animations, but they honestly look like a 12-year-old has opened up Blender for the first time and this is their sample project. It is so bizarre. Oh yeah, and just in case you forgot, by the way, this movie is about solving a murder, or a murderer who's going around. So yeah, I just thought I'd remind you, because you know the plot, it's that good. Obviously people are going to forget. I'm being sarcastic as always. Who did the music for this film? It is just objectively weird, and it doesn't even fit the movie at all. So just looking it up, apparently Michael Wyndham, I think that's how you pronounce his name, sorry if I've messed that up, he did the score for this movie. Now I'm sure Michael is a very competent composer, or maybe not, as this is the only movie he has under his film belt, so sort of sums up this movie really, doesn't it? Just getting seemingly random people in to do jobs that they might not be qualified for, and then sort of hoping to pass it off with a massive budget behind them. Oh wait, yeah, remember when I said that this movie had a budget of $5 million? Well, yeah, turns out this movie barely cost $40,000 to make. So where did the other $4.9 million go? Well, no one really knows. Most people think it's because this movie is just a massive embezzlement scam, or the director just spent $4 million on things we're never ever going to see. The editing in this movie is just something else. I've actually left this part of the video to this part just so you can see what I mean by the awful editing.
Oh, the vision, it's stopped.
Angie, it looks like someone left a book in the living room. Is it yours?
What we've just seen might not have really happened.
And the main thing I want to ask is, who was in charge of editing at this movie? It was probably the director, let's not gonna lie. The harsh jump cuts and the seemingly random cutaways to awful animations it's just living proof of how bad this movie really is. Just look at this scene here. Can you tell something seems a bit off here? Yeah, that's right. That sign just there is edited on. Why? Just either put a sign on the wall or just edit it slightly better by spending more than a few seconds typing in the name of that corporation, which I can't pronounce, by the way. And also, what does that even mean? There's no understanding like as to what that name means, what the corporation's on about. It's just so confusing. I honestly think you could edit this entire scene better in Windows Movie Maker and about 5 to 10 minutes of time, or any free or domestic use editing software that anyone can go out and buy. Now, just to prove that point correct, let's have a go at that. So I'm going to try and make this terrible movie somewhat better. Now, I just need to sort of say this as a bit of a disclaimer. I'm not a professional video editor. I'm not heavily involved with film. So some of the edits I might do might not be what someone with maybe 20-30 years in editing would do. But let's just see what I can do, a relative amateur can do with my editing software, and let's say 5 to 10 minutes of time. So I'll be back in 5 to 10 minutes, but it'll probably be a second for you. Alright then, so I'm back. As I said, a second for you, but about 10 minutes for me. So I've edited this scene. So let's just watch the original scene that was included in the movie. So let's play that now.
Places I'd still like to visit. I still haven't been to the main market. Food isn't bad from what I've gathered.
Well, your room is almost as spacious as mine.
There's an apartment down the hall that is larger. It has 3 bedrooms.
I saw this ad in the magazine for some apartments north of Bangwell. It's so much calmer compared to where I live.
Is it far from where you live?
No, it's not far. I can take a bus and get there.
Okay then, now you've got that fresh in your mind, now let's watch my edit.
Places I'd still like to visit. I still haven't been to the main market. Food isn't bad from what I've gathered.
Well, your room is almost as spacious as mine.
There's an apartment down the hall that is larger. It has 3 bedrooms.
I saw this ad in the magazine for some apartments north of Bangwell. It's so much calmer compared to where I live.
Is it far from where you live?
No, it's not far. I can take a bus and get there.
Now, I'm not just going to say objectively mine is the best. So just judge for yourself which you think is better. But personally, I actually think it's so weird to think that a movie was shown in the cinema like this was edited this badly. Just for clarification's sake, by the way, I was using Logic Pro. If you really want me to, I could leave a little tutorial or just write down the effects that I used. They're all stock plugins, by the way. You could do it on Sony Vegas, DaVinci Resolve, Adobe Premiere, anything like that. DaVinci Resolve is free, by the way, so you could improve this movie for free, but yeah, it just shows how bad this movie really is, doesn't it? Okay guys, sorry for this random cut to me with this terrible microphone. It's just my headphone microphone. But for some reason, the audio part where I was talking about the ending of the movie did not record. So let's just really quickly go over this. So the ending of this movie is absolutely terrible. So after you've gone through all the trials and tribulations of this, where you barely know what's going on, you know, there's just random animations popping up out of nowhere, you honestly do not know what is going on at all. They decide to end the movie like this. I honestly could not believe this movie could get any worse, but they did it. They ended on the "and it was all a dream" angle. So what was the point? What was the point of watching this? I'm just going to have to cut this before I get a bit too mad, and I'm going to have to give you back to previous me. So yeah, see you in just a second. So I don't really know what I'm going to title this video. I don't know if it's going to be... It's not a review, it's definitely a critique. But I just wanted to sort of bring a lot of people's attention, or whoever watches this, to this movie. And I just want to say, if you are thinking about making a movie, or thinking about doing anything in film at all, I'd probably recommend that you watch this movie so you realise what not to do. Now, the main reason I wanted to do this video as well, besides the fact that I wanted to help, you know, people if they wanted to gain any tips or anything, or just watch this movie in what, like 15 minutes. Mainly because I'm starting to get into a lot of like video editing again, like filmmaking, maybe writing some scripts. I might post some at some point, but they won't be very good, I don't think, for a while. So yeah, this is the end of this video. Let me know if you like it, and be sure to check out the podcast, which should be coming out very soon. And yeah, be sure to subscribe to this channel and check out everything in the description. So yeah, see you in the next video, wherever I upload that.